Sean Strickland has the chance to do one of the most hilarious things of all time this weekend and win the UFC's middleweight championship, man. In today's video, I'm going to talk about what ways Sean Strickland can win and just how I see this fight going a little bit, man. Now, this is going to be the first of a two-parter. I want to do this from both sides of the spectrum, right? I want to do Sean Strickland's side, then I want to do the side that most people can see, which is Israel Adesanya's side, man. So, yeah, we're going to talk about this fight, how Sean Strickland could possibly put up a little bit of a fight up against Israel Adesanya, and just how could he actually win in the end, man. So, we all know Sean Strickland at this point. Absolutely hilarious to some, annoying to others. In my opinion, I think he's kind of an underrated fighter, bro. He's been on a fairly decent run the last couple years, man. I personally believe he won the Cannonier fight, bro. Of course, the loss before that was the Alex Pereira fight, which we know how that went for him, where he ends up getting KO'd, bro. But all in all, Sean Strickland has turned himself, especially since he's went up to middleweight, into a really, really decent fighter, man. And particularly, he has a, I don't want to say unorthodox. He has his unique style of fighting where he's in a semi-modified Philly shell. A lot of times his body is turned sideways. He's usually putting pressure on people, bro. His chin is usually up in the air. And he does a lot of things that if you ever walk into a striking gym or walk into an MMA gym, they're gonna immediately tell you it's wrong, man. But it works for him, and it's worked for this long, man. So I want to talk about some of his strengths, some of his weaknesses, and also some of the ways that I believe that he can put up a fight against Israel Adesanya. Now, of course, his strength, striking. According to some people, Sean Strickland is a decent grappler, right? But we have not seen Sean Strickland grapple offensively, at least in years, it seems like. Now, I don't even know the last fight where he actually shot for a takedown, man. So Sean Strickland's biggest strength is his striking, but in particular, his unique style of striking where he's in this modified Philly shell where his hand is near his face. He's rolling shots, but his chin is also up in the air, which is super, super weird. But it works for him because of the fact that he's kind of tall for middleweight, kind of lanky for middleweight, and he can fight in that. He doesn't throw a lot of kicks. He does not throw a lot of actually punches in bunches, man. He usually sticks to one strikes, particularly in the early rounds. Now, as the rounds go on, he does actually put out the output, but early rounds is usually just jabs, it's straights, and he might throw the occasional low kick there, here and there, but it's really not a lot. And in particular in this fight, I believe Sean Strickland is going to have to put pressure on Israel Adesanya. Now, there's two types of pressures in my opinion, man. As a fighter, I think you have one pressure, which is just straightforward head-on pressure, bro. This is the dudes like Marab, who they're just coming out the gun and just pressuring you. But there's a second type of pressure that a lot of people overlook, which is just always being in somebody's face, man. This doesn't necessarily mean you're striking consistently or you're just putting out output consistently, bro. But it's being in their presence, being in their spaces, being on their angles. And I think that's the type of pressure that Sean Strickland is going to have to do in this fight, man. Which he can do. Is not exactly one of Sean Strickland's strengths. He does put on a decent amount of pressure, but he's not really the greatest at cutting angles. He's really not the greatest at cutting off the cage when people are trying to flee from him, man. And again, he's going to have to be very, very smart with the way that he pressures Israel Adesanya, who is a really, really great, of course, kickboxer, but of course, a counter puncher, man. So that's his first strength. His second strength, in my opinion, is his gas tank. Sean Strickland has a very, very underrated gas tank. I don't think I've ever seen him gas in any of his fights. And in particular, that comes from accordance to all of the rounds that he spars, man. If anybody has ever been, again, sparred or been to an MMA gym, the more rounds you spar, the more rounds you're consistently doing it, the more likely you're going to be to get good at it, man. And again, this is another thing that I think he's just going to have to use. There's not a lot of ways Sean can win this fight, but another one is just putting an insane amount of pressure on Israel Adesanya. He's going to have to put pace on him. He's going to have to throw more than he normally does. But again, when you're fighting somebody like Izzy, the more you open up, the more likely you are to get countered, man. And the last way that I think he definitely can is wearing on Izzy, bro. Why did I say wearing like that, bro? But just wearing on him, being there, being on his body, bro, being in his face, cage grappling him. Even if you don't get takedowns, go for the takedowns, bro. Grapple him a little bit, put him up against the cage. He's going to have to do all of those things, but again, he's going to have to stay safe while doing them. Now, let's talk about some of his negatives. The biggest negative, particularly going into this fight for me, the leg kicks. Sean Strickland does not check leg kicks, and it's mostly because of the way that his fighting style is. He's turned almost, I don't want to say sideways because it's not exactly sideways, but his body's at an angle to where he's going to be susceptible to leg kicks. And in particular against somebody like Adesanya, who is probably a top 10 leg kicker in MMA right now, he's going to have to really not work, it's too late at this point, but hopefully in this camp, they've worked on at least getting him lined up in position. It's hard enough to check Israel Adesanya's leg kicks, bro. It's even harder when you're giving him the outside of your leg to get. Now, Sean Strickland is actually fairly durable. Like, he's hard to knock out. Of course, Alex Pereira knocked him out, but Alex Pereira knocks everybody out at this point. But he's hard to knock out, bro. He's hard to finish, and he's hard to get down, man. So I don't think the leg kicks are going to be such a thing where it's like, okay, he's going to want to quit. But it is going to be a problem for him, and particularly with the way that he fights with that boxing heavy style, bro. Anytime he goes to plant, he's going to be getting his legs beat up by Israel Adesanya, who of course is going to be a longer fighter. So that's the number one thing I think he's going to have to address is the leg kicks. The second thing, and one thing that I hinted at earlier, Sean Strickland has a terrible habit of keeping his chin in the air. And it's something, again, it's worked for him because his defenses are good. He rolls shots, he blocks shots, he does a lot of that. Your chin in the air against people like Israel Adesanya or against people like we saw with Alex Pereira gets you knocked out. Like, that's essentially what it comes to, bro. And particularly with how much he feints, and particularly another thing that Sean does a terrible job at, he bites on a lot of feints. And again, that's partly because of how much he spars. He's used to countering people with his jab off of feints. You can't do that against people like Israel Adesanya, bro. And again, we saw this in the Alex Pereira fight. And I keep going back to the Pereira fight because Izzy and Pereira, even though they have different strengths, they fight very similar. They use a lot of low kicks. They use a lot of counterattacks. They use a lot of lead check hooks, bro. And Sean is going to have to deal with that throughout this fight, man. And the last weakness that I think definitely going into this fight that is going to hurt him is overconfidence or underconfidence. And we saw this a decent amount with Sean's fights, man. In particular, I believe, not I was finna say Uriah Faber, but Uriah Hall, bro. He said after he won that fight that he was scared, bro. The Alex Pereira fight, he said he kind of locked up. He's shown a habit of locking up in big moments. You cannot do that against Israel Adesanya, bro. We saw it with the Rob Whittaker fight. If you do that against Adesanya, you're going to get knocked out. You're going to lose. You're going to have to be present. And on the flip side of that, being overconfident, like we saw a little bit as the Pereira fight went on, where he thought that he can just jab him and walk into stuff, bro. He's going to have to walk a fine line between being confident but not being too confident to where he walks into shots. And you say, well, how do you think he can win? I don't think he can win. I don't. I give him a 10% chance of winning, and I say this all the time. It's MMA, right? It's 4-ounce gloves. Anything can happen. Anybody can get knocked down. I don't see a realistic path to victory for Sean Strickland. With that being said, I always say anything can happen. You're fighting in 4-ounce gloves. No matter what, that's always going to give you a puncher's chance. And I do believe that something stupid can happen because stupid things happen in fighting all the time, man. But if I had to go away, I would say he has to at least, one, put a lot of pressure on Izzy, do a lot of cage grappling, get some control time, get some ranges where Izzy's not striking at you, get 2 minutes here, get 3 minutes there if you holding them up against the cage. Again, this is strictly just from Sean Strickland's way of winning, bro. This isn't from a fan's perspective where it's like, oh, what would I want to see? If Sean wants to win this fight, he's going to have to grind this one out. This cannot be a clean kickboxing fight or a clean grappling fight or a clean Izzy at distance fight. You have to put him on the cage. You have to dirty box him. You have to be in his face consistently. And it just so happens that Israel Adesanya is one of the best at countering those type of things, man. So I'm going to pray for Strickland. I have no idea how he wins this fight, bro, but I hope he can somehow pull it out because I think it'd be interesting, bro. And yeah, that's about that. I will have my perspective from Izzy's side tomorrow, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Out.